All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new here. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and apologies for being a little bit late today. Not a big deal, though. Irfan, what's going on, man? Tyler, Johnny Gaming. Hope everybody's doing well today. Ray, what's going on, bro? We have another PlayStation 6 focused topic to talk about today. Nothing too crazy, honestly, but a bit of a follow-up. Maybe next gen Xbox as well, a little bit of that. Doing good, Ray. It's good to hear. Chris, what's up? 223 Gaming. 0 Point. Appreciate you guys being here. So, boss, don't start already. Yeah, we're going to be talking about the PlayStation 6, the code names for the APUs leaked out, and we also seem to have confirmation that the Magnus APU that leaked out a week or two ago is pretty much confirmed to be the next generation Xbox, which does seemingly confirm that this thing is going to be insanely expensive. And yeah, a third-party Nintendo Direct was announced. It's happening tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to be tuning into that. Like, I'll just see what they announce. And we have the King coming in. That doesn't sound right. I botched it. I think that's how you say your name, though. The King. That's how I'm reading it. He comes in out of nowhere and drops 10 membership gifts for you guys. Yeah, it's a crazy way to say his name. Bro, thank you so much for that. I think that might be your first time dropping member gifts. I'm not sure. I see they changed the names again on YouTube, by the way, with the @ sign once again. Not sure what's going on there, but the King, thank you so much for dropping 10 membership gifts. I will add that to the goal, and you will get...
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sound bites. Yeah, so I just set the goal to 50 today, honestly, because you guys have been just obliterating the goals so easily anymore that we'll still make it boss treats at 25, but basically I'm just putting 2 goals in one there. You know, we hit 25, boss treats, we hit 50, we'll do reps at the end of the stream. So, the King, thank you so much for dropping 10 membership gifts. If you just got gifted a membership, go check out some of the members exclusive content. We just did some Death Stranding 2 gameplay, and we did a members lounge last week. We'll have more members content coming up. So thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. We are totally fan funded. You guys fund the channel. You guys make it possible. And Lost Isley, aka Isley. Oh man, it's throwing me off again with these @ signs. Isley comes in and drops another single member gift. Always here to remind you guys. You can always drop a single gift if you want to contribute, but you just want to keep it low key. Thank you for that, Isley. So right off the bat, 11 members on the day. Love to see it. You know, it's funny. I saw people saying they're like, "Oh, I think Microsoft is probably going to be at the partner, Nintendo Direct tomorrow." And I'm like, bro, the last time we heard that, Sony was the one who showed up. I mean, Helldivers 2 Switch 2 announcement. Just saying. I think I almost feel like at this point it's more likely Sony's going to show up. You think both will show up? Damn. That'd be kind of crazy. Garrett's like, stop immediately. And I have a couple super chats from New Soul 9, by the way, who has always been dropping some super chats before the stream. I'm going to read them momentarily, just giving it a little bit of time. New Soul knows how we do it. Let more people file in. Helldivers on the Switch would be dope. Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, if they could get it running on the Series S, right, they could probably get it running on the Switch too. I mean, I don't know what the lowest end spec is for Helldivers 2 on the PC, but I bet you that's something that they're going to announce. I don't know. The timing would make sense. Yeah, or it's just gonna be like, here's Horizon Zero Dawn. Garrett's like, this is blasphemy. It is going to be interesting, the fact that it's a partner showcase, though, because, I mean, you just kind of, it seems like it's just a wild card of who could show up. Again, I don't know if I'm going to stream it. It's pretty early in the morning. And I just feel, I don't know, I feel kind of fraudulent. Not fraudulent, but like, I don't even have a Switch 2 yet, so it's like, I don't know. But it runs on the ROG Ally. Okay. Well, I guess we'll see what happens there. Boss, it's not time yet. When we get to 25, go chill with Leia. Did you see the Q2 Circana reports for PlayStation sales were corrected? Bro, it's too early. Mr. B, no, I didn't see that. Could you tell, like, what exactly was corrected? The only thing I saw, I'm sorry, my mic's, I think, close to peaking. The only thing I saw was that Microsoft had like 6 of the top 10 games on PlayStation, which is crazy. Yeah, I have to say, I think I'm a little bit more, well, not a little bit more. I'm definitely more excited for the Battlefield 6 reveal tomorrow than I am the Nintendo Direct. Elden Ring Night Rain is number 1 and Death Stranding 2 is number 7. Oh wait, that's for let me go see if I can find this. Okay, here we go. I think I have it in front of me. Okay, so yeah, number 1, Elden Ring Night Rain, number 2, Forza Horizon 5, and then yeah, Death Stranding's number 7, Indiana Jones is number 8. Okay. Well, it is good to see Death Stranding in the top 10 there. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I didn't even consider the fact that, oh man, Death Stranding isn't even in the top 10. That's a little concerning. Very odd mistake by Matt Piscatella. Yeah, that was kind of weird because it's like I didn't even notice the fact that Elden Ring wasn't on there. And, you know, Elden Ring would easily be in the top 10. Easily. No, I don't think Night Rain's going to win Game of the Year. Yeah, I don't know how I didn't pick up on that. Damn. And I put that in my video today, too. Shit. I dropped the ball as well. None of them are original Xbox IP. All of those IP are bought. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Damn. Well, no, Forza is, to clarify. So, not entirely true. But yeah, I mean, you got Doom on there, Indiana Jones, Call of Duty, Minecraft, Elder Scrolls. See, this is what I mean. Like, dude, you look at this list and it's like Microsoft's goal was to become the biggest publisher. That is their goal. That was their goal, and they've achieved it. Like, that's crazy, dude. They have like 5 or 6 games in the top 10. Now, granted, they released a lot of games last quarter. Let's not forget that. But their strategy seems to be working, from what I gather. And I don't know. Sony's not. It's not to Sony's detriment. If anything, it's benefiting them. It's probably enticing more people to buy PS5. Sony gets a 30% cut for doing nothing. So it's like, it's a very interesting win-win scenario, I guess we could say. Xbox will infect PlayStation from the inside. Dude, that sounds so intense. They're going to infect PlayStation. Well, let me read New Soul 9 super chats. New Soul, thank you so much for waiting patiently, man. He says here with 2 back-to-back super chats, he says, hey, BG, I wanted to comment on exclusivity, and I acknowledge that it does have their benefits. That being not having to worry about multiple configurations for a game. I believe efficiency is the most important thing. That being said, how do you believe we can keep the efficiency while simultaneously having everyone having access to the game day one? That's actually a really good question, New Soul 9. And yeah, it's something that I feel like not a lot of people have been discussing in this regard. When we talk about multi-platform development, we talk about Microsoft going multi-platform. We talk about the idea of Sony becoming more multi-platform in some ways. Just this notion that all games dropping everywhere day one. And we have talked extensively about the main benefit of exclusivity for a developer from the development side is you don't have to worry about multiple configurations, right? And if you do want to drop it on PC later or bring it to another console later, you kind of have that time you can focus on it when you're done with whatever platform you're mainly focused on. Efficiency, game development. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is AI. Unfortunately, I do think that in the next 5 to 10 years, AI is going to play a massive role in making AAA game development more efficient, and speeding things along. But I also think a part of that is, if AI can't get there quick enough, if the tool set that will offer isn't going to be efficient enough, or it just may not be enough in general, maybe too soon, then the only other option there would be, either take longer on each game. If you take longer on each game, you're going to put more money into that game. Time is money, right? Your other option is you can scale up. You can bring more developers on board, more manpower, to create more teams that are dedicated to optimization and porting and stuff like that. Also resource driven. That's going to take up time and money. So realistically speaking, if I'm trying to be like a realist here, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, if things become more homogenized and we're looking at more multi-platform releases than ever before, and you have these massive 300 dev teams making these AAA games, I think AI is going to be deployed very aggressively. We already see Microsoft pushing in that direction, and we're going to see other publishers pushing in that direction. They're going to be deploying that very aggressively because it's like if we can get AI to cut down development by a year, that's going to save an unbelievable amount of money for the publisher. And players will not complain because we will get the game sooner. There's an ethical side to this that will obviously come to a head at some point. But yeah, I think I'd have to say that's my answer, New Soul 9. I don't think these companies are going to scale up. I don't think these companies are going to want to spend more time and more money to, to port these games and target all these different platforms. I just think that, like, essentially, we could end up seeing a team like Nixxes being replaced entirely, not entirely, but almost entirely by AI. I know that sounds dire, and I'm thinking long term here, but it's like if AI becomes advanced enough in the development field, it's like we're just going to let AI port the game. We're going to let AI optimize the game. We're going to let AI scale the game up or down. I do think that's where we're headed. I don't think we're there yet, and I don't know when exactly we're going to be there, but I think, when we see Microsoft, one of the reasons they're, laying off so many employees is because they want to, invest even more money into AI infrastructure. This is part of that. They're beginning to train developers on how to use these AI tools to help make their development pipeline more efficient. One of the reports we heard, which is probably the craziest one, is that Microsoft is keeping the same deadlines, the same budgets for their games, everything's staying the same. But the difference is they're going to be reducing the headcount, and they expect the team leaders of these studios to become efficient enough and familiar enough with the deployment of these AI tool sets to be able to make up for that. You know what I mean? Like, they're not giving them more leeway. They're basically saying, like, we're reducing your headcount. We're replacing a portion of it with AI. We're not giving you more money. We're not giving you more time. So it's on you. And that right there is a glimpse into the future of AAA game development. Right now, it's easy to kind of point the finger at Microsoft and be like, Microsoft's a big evil villain and big evil corporation. Like, yes, they technically are. And they're the first ones really trying to go in this direction, but everybody will follow. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I know it sounds a little depressing, but from the consumer side, you're probably not going to care. If we're just talking about the consumer side, the reality is it's going to result in more games releasing more often, games that we've been anticipating, that we will be anticipating, seeing 6 months shaved off that development timeline, seeing a year shaved off of it. And the corporations are going to be happy. The mass consumer will be happy, but the people who are going to get screwed, unfortunately, are the devs. The people who are actually in the trenches trying to make this stuff. So it's a weird situation, certainly. But thank you for the super chats, New Soul. We also have Beast Mode here, member for 7 months. And he says, just wanted to say I appreciate the content as always, MBG, and boy, am I hyped for MGS. Less than a month away. By the way, I missed that gym poster. Luna, it's not time for treats yet. We're almost there, Luna. Hang tight. Thank you for that, Beast Mode. I'm glad you enjoy the content. And yeah, man, it is crazy to think Metal Gear is just less than a month away. And, it doesn't seem like there's any delay in sight. It seems like it's going to hit that date. I think if it was going to get delayed, it would have been announced already. I'm just eager to learn a little bit more about that Fox Hunt multiplayer mode. They said they were going to talk more about it closer to launch. So maybe we'll be hearing about that in the coming weeks. But yeah, man, I can't wait. Really, Luna? It's not time. It's not time yet. And we have the Sparky Nuts, a member for 21 months, saying, I'm hyped for AI's ability to find bad code and optimize games. Eventually, I think AI will be able to spit out Naughty Dog level games every few months. That's interesting. I mean, what you just mentioned there, though, AI's ability to find bad code and optimize games, yeah, that is something that I think everybody can benefit from. There's no denying that some of these devs would prefer to save time, obviously, so that they can focus on other things. And yeah, having to kind of find that bad code and optimize for all these different configurations, it can be very time consuming. And frankly, it can probably be, I mean, I'm not a developer, but I can assume it's probably an underwhelming aspect of game dev that nobody really looks forward to. And so, yeah, that's something that if AI can do it just efficient, no problem, these devs are going to be able to focus on the bigger picture, more important things. But there is every chance that could also replace somebody, like that might be somebody's job. Like your job was to optimize. We don't need you anymore. We got something here that's way more efficient than you, doesn't need to be paid, doesn't need to take a break, doesn't need to eat, doesn't need to sleep. You're out. Whoa. All right. It's like, get your fucking hands off me. The idea of AI eventually being able to spit out Naughty Dog level games every few months. I mean, God, I don't know. I don't know what that would mean for the industry. I don't know how that would be handled. I don't know how much those games would cost. I mean, you would think something like that would make subscription services the king of the hill, right? Where it's like, if AI becomes advanced enough where you could produce like a Naughty Dog level game somehow, I mean, we're talking like total hypothetical here, but if there's crazy, I mean, we look at the advancements in AI, it's not impossible to imagine this. If you could get to that point where it's literally just like every couple of months we can produce a game that level, like that quality level. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's kind of scary. I don't know what that would do to the industry. I feel like that would Yeah, I don't know. No, I haven't seen that beast mode. I'm not even sure who that is. Fortnite and Call of Duty already looks like it's being made with AI. Give it 5 years. A WNBA player. Damn. Yeah, I haven't been following that beast mode. David Jaffe's really excited for AI games, but his chat tells him the truth that AI games still suck. I mean, it could be possible that it's just you won't. Maybe you simply can't get Naughty Dog level games. Like I do wonder. There was this. Did you guys see this situation with Spotify and this AI band that shot to the top and it went viral, and it was just an AI band, and it seems that people at first did not know it was an AI band. They thought it was a real band. But it seems like it was kind of manufactured. Like this was a manufactured thing, and the whole idea was we want people to learn that it's going to. We want people to learn that it's going to be AI, that they got tricked by it, and then that's what's going to make it go viral. But I mean, it does. We're seeing it in the music industry, where we're beginning to see that line slowly being crossed of like you used to be able to pretty quickly and pretty easily identify if this was an AI song or an AI manufactured song. It's gotten so advanced and people have gotten so good with their inputs that now it's actually effectively tricking people. So I feel like with game development, we're still in those early days where I think people can, if somebody just put out a full blown AI developed game, you would immediately notice that. And I think for a long time we're going to notice that, right? But eventually there is that kind of like event horizon or that threshold that if it keeps improving over time, you will cross that threshold where can you tell the difference between the man-made game versus the AI made game? And if we get to that point where it's like, actually, I can't tell, what then? You know what I mean? Like, what does that mean? Oh, you like the shirt, Prince? King Sam's asking what's going on with Lost Soul Side. We'll talk about that. I think that I'm going to make that the first topic I talk about because I meant to talk about it yesterday and I actually forgot to because we were talking about other topics. But yeah, there does seem to be a little bit of a slightly concerning update. Nothing like that I think should make anybody panic, but I just came across this interesting report about Lost Soul Aside. And yeah, that's set to release in like a month, so. And I guess we'll start there. Up here. So I have this report from PlayStation Lifestyle, and it says an upcoming PS5 exclusive action adventure RPG has received a concerning update from a player who got their hands on the game at a recent preview event. Journalists and content creators recently got to play Lost Soul Aside at an event in China, and one of the participants has shared a couple of issues that has some fans worried. A fan and former insider who goes as Lunatic Ignis on X claims to have played Lost Soul Aside at the event. According to them, the creator, Yang Bing, confirmed that the game is AA rather than AAA, and its $60 price tag is a cause for concern. Lunatic Ignis. Come on, Luna. I'll give you a couple. Luna's making me feel bad. Boss, you're gonna have to hang tight, bro. It says Lunatic Ignis claims that Lost Soul Aside, quote, doesn't stand up for itself, end quote, and in some parts it feels very cheap with animations and combat. The player reckons that although Chinese gamers are intrigued by the game, it is overpriced for what it has to offer. As a reminder, this game was funded and is being published by Sony Interactive Entertainment on both PS5 and PC. So this is what Lunatic Ignis had to say, his rundown. He says, we only, he says, there are a lot of concerns about Lost Soul aside. I had the occasion to play the game alongside various Chinese journalists and content creators. Here are some of the things we learned. We only played the first chapter in the demo, about 2 hours with multiple boss battles. Yang Bing confirmed it is a AA game. They want to aim for a Souls-like as their next title. The development truly started in mid-2021. That's when they decided what type of game it will be. Making this game was very difficult for Yang Bing, destroying his health. There are about 120 minutes of cutscenes in the entire game. The real problem about the game is that it doesn't stand up for itself at times. It feels very cheap with animations and combat. Most of us don't think the game will be a general success because of the AAA price, even though the Chinese gamers are intrigued. The game is more of a Final Fantasy VII remake than a Devil May Cry 5, and they even have a town similar to it with a bunch of shops and NPCs. So, it seems like the negatives here and what has some people concerned is it not so much about the quality of the game, although, maybe some of the animations and stuff are, need to be touched up, but it seems like it's the fact that it's being treated like a AAA game, and it may not actually be a AAA game. Okay. So I mean, I don't know, man. I do. It seems like the major concern here is that this game may flop. It doesn't seem like people who were looking forward to it or those who have been anticipating it. It seems like those people obviously don't mind paying $60 and they're sold on what they've seen, but it does seem like in terms of it having like a wider reach and being able to do bigger numbers and, potentially this game being an overall success in China, it seems like these things may not actually happen, may not be possible. And we have Sean Mitchell with a super chat. Thank you, buddy. He says, we'll be watching your Death Stranding 2 spoiler cast when I complete the story, MBG. Is it your game of the year so far? I'm at 80 hours and episode 9. Wow, yeah, Sean, you're really savoring each bite. It is my game of the year, and I do explain in that spoiler cast exactly why it's my game of the year. It's not my game of the year just because it's Kojima. It's not my game of the year just because it's a timed PlayStation exclusive or whatever. I always suspected it had the potential to be game of the year for me, but I do explain that there was basically a certain moment in the game that for me, it just hit me and it pushed me over the edge. And I was like, yes, okay. Expedition 33 was my game of the year. It got edged out by about 2 or 3% because of this. So I hope you enjoy the spoiler cast, Sean, and I appreciate the fact that you're going to go back and listen to it when you wrap up the game. Hold on one sec. Wow, really, Irfan? You watched it 3 times? Bro, that's commitment. Yeah, Sean, you'll definitely have to get back to me when you finish the game and you watch the spoiler cast, man. And I do hope you enjoy it. I enjoyed having that conversation and that discussion. It was a good time. We also have Instant Messenger Sama, who says, have you seen the developer diary from Crytek? It almost sounds like Crysis 4 ain't on hold anymore. I'd expect it to roll out soon, to be honest. I'll be honest with you, man. I didn't even know that Crysis 4 was in development. I thought Crysis was done. I mean, geez, it must have been in development. Well, you're saying it. The dev diary says they're making it sound like it's not on hold anymore. I haven't been keeping up with Crysis. Yeah, I did play Crysis though back in the day. I even remember playing a little bit of Crysis 3, and it was like multiplayer or something. Can it run Crysis? We have a Kane Z7 with a super chat. And he says $60 isn't a AAA price, not anymore at least. And how it being similar to Final Fantasy VII Remake is a bad thing. At least it isn't a Souls-like. MKT is the market is saturated. Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing, man. Like half of what we read sounded like it was actually good. Like, like these are good things. Like them liking it to, you know, to something like Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think is actually a really good thing. I don't know though. I don't know. Maybe the enthusiasm just at the event wasn't very high or something. Or if you're saying development has been put on hold since Q3 2024. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know about that. Yeah, I think Lost Soul aside, it has potential. It definitely has potential. I think it's understandable why anybody would be worried that this game looks like it may flop. It doesn't seem like it has like the mass market appeal. Everything I've seen of it looks pretty good though. It looks like it has some good boss battles. The combat looks solid. It definitely has that Final Fantasy meets Devil May Cry type vibe, but it is just, I think, undeniably a game that has gone very much under the radar, and you just have to ask yourself what the expectations are. Like what is the sales expectation from Sony's side? Sony's funding it. They published it. They stuck by the creator this entire time. They're even publishing it on PC. It's a Chinese game, Chinese developed game, and we know Sony's trying to break out in the Chinese market. So yeah, I mean, there are some concerns, but overall, it does sound like there are some really good qualities as well. Josh, you're saying I really hope Expedition 33 wins Game of the Year because it puts a new spin on an overlooked genre. I think it still has the best chance overall. To be honest, I do. Um, the one thing I will say is there is a part of me that almost feels like maybe Expedition should win Game of the Year, even though Death Stranding is my personal Game of the Year. I almost wonder if Expedition should win because it really does feel like, yeah, it's such an original game. Not to say that Death Stranding 2 isn't. It's just that, one of the things that makes Death Stranding 2 my Game of the Year is the callbacks, is the nostalgia factor. The fact that Kojima is leaning into, certain things that he's known for, and callbacks, and like I said, stuff like that. It definitely has a big impact on me, but I can't deny that Expedition 33, it really is kind of daring in that sense, where it's like yes, it's a turn-based RPG, which is not, that is an established genre, but it really just was like, let's just go, let's just go and do something that, nobody else is really doing right now. And I respect the hell out of that. Certainly. You think Mafia might flop? Oh, I hope not. Does it? Wow, I didn't know that, Irfan. Yeah, I don't know. I really do like Expedition 33. It's a very, very good game, man. It was just such a shocker for me this year. But, I'll keep you guys updated on the Lost Soul side situation. I do want to talk about this for a moment, though. Let's shift gears to the PlayStation 6. And there's one thing in particular here that I don't know how many of you guys here are really well versed on the technical side of things, but there's a specific question that I want to ask you about the PlayStation 6 APU, and just the PlayStation 6 specifications in general. But we have a report here says the code names for the APUs that will power the PlayStation 6 and the PlayStation handheld have been revealed by prominent leakers, effectively confirming that another leaked APU from AMD will power the next generation Xbox console. Following the release of a new video providing some new information on the leaked AMD Zen 6 Magnus APU, Moore's Law is Dead provided an update on the APU code names for next generation systems that have been circulating online in the past few days, revealing that Orion is the code name for the APU that's going to power the PlayStation 6, and Canis is the code name of the APU that will power the new PlayStation handheld. While no other leaker has confirmed if Orion is indeed the APU of the next-gen console for Sony, known AMD leaker Kepler L2 did confirm that Canis is in fact the APU for the PlayStation handheld, adding that it has a monolithic design. As there were some doubts regarding the Magnus APU being the PlayStation 6's APU, now that it's known Orion will be the PS6, the AMD Zen 6 APU leaked earlier this month has been confirmed to be the one that will power the next generation Xbox. In that video, Moore's Law is Dead revealed details about this APU, which is the fact that it will have a 3nm RDNA AT2 GPU die. It can go up to 70 compute units, but is expected to get 68 for, CU yields. And it will have and this is the interesting part, it will have a 192-bit memory bus and not a 384-bit bus as previously revealed. Looking at the leak specs, AMD leaker Kepler L2 speculates Microsoft may use a split memory model again, as a 192-bit bus is considered too little to feed both a CPU and a GPU. And there are even rumors that Sony is going to use a 192 memory bit bus for the PS6, and that would be truly strange because the PlayStation 5 currently has a 256 memory bit bus. So, there's some interesting stuff going on here with this. I also have to question, I'm not the most technical person, so I'm a bit out of my depth here, but if I'm not mistaken, wasn't like one of the biggest criticisms between the two Xbox Series consoles. So like one of the biggest criticisms of the Series S was the split memory design, right? Did I make that up, or am I ill-informed on that? Prince Groove says Code Violet is a day one. Cake and Dinos are triple anus. Bro. Chase says, like the stream, let's get it to 100. Yeah, guys, make sure you hit that like button to help the stream out. Let me know you're enjoying it. Tarnish, you're saying yes, it bottlenecked GPU performance by a significant amount. Rudy, you're saying you don't believe this leak. Rudy, why don't you believe the leak? And Tarnish, you're saying the Series S's bigger issue is RAM. Oh, you retracted that. Basically, more power with less power consumption. Oh, you're saying the 10 gigabytes of RAM was not enough? So if they had 32 gigabytes of RAM with a split memory pool, I'm assuming that would be much less problematic. Yeah, I heard about that. The tsunami. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you don't think it means anything anymore? The consoles will be heavily using AI and frame gen? Well, here's the big thing I'm trying to figure out. Based off this update we have for the Magnus APU, does it still signal that this next generation Xbox is going to be very, very expensive and very premium? Because it says it will be using a 3 nanometer RDNA AT2. I don't know what that stands for, the AT2 GPU die. It'll go up to 70 compute units. I mean, does this thing sound like it's going to be really premium and really expensive? Because the last we heard, that's what they were saying. I'm absolutely going to play the Battlefield 6 beta. Yeah. I'm definitely playing that. 100%. What's up, Lady Gamer? I think so. Yeah, I think, Diego. If they use 3D V cache, it's all good. Battlefield 6 beta live stream. We might, yeah. RDNA AT2 is the code name for RDNA 5. Okay, thank you for that, Hanzo. Oh, it's all good. Appreciate you stopping by to let me know that, though. Well, the thing that's really more interesting to me about this leak is, so, okay, we're not learning the APU details for the PlayStation 6. Moore's Law is Dead hinted on his last, I think it was either a stream or a podcast video he did. He hinted that he has a bunch more information about the PlayStation 6 and about the APU and about, like, you know, the more interesting and important details that we're going to want to know. And he basically hinted that he's going to be revealing that stuff in the coming weeks. So I'll definitely be paying attention to that. I'm like, this learning about the PlayStation 6's APU is going to be really important because it's like getting explicit details. We have the code names Orion and Canis, and it's interesting because these are grouped together. Sony is clearly grouping the home PlayStation 6 console with this upcoming PlayStation handheld as a family of devices. I was always kind of wondering if internally Sony was developing this handheld kind of separately for the PlayStation 5, not really in tandem with the PlayStation 6, but this seems to confirm that no, they are doing both at one time, and they are grouping them together. But learning about the PlayStation 6's APU, Orion, getting those explicit details is going to be crucial in understanding what Sony is planning to do pricing wise. And let's talk about this for a moment. I asked AI, I said, why might the PlayStation 6 use a 192-bit memory bus? Now, I don't think this is not confirmed. To be clear, we have no rumors of the PlayStation. Well, I think there were some rumors, but we do not know if the PlayStation 6 is going to use a 192-bit memory bus. The reason why that would be strange, like I said, is because that would be less than the PS5 is offering. But the AI overview says, while the official specs for the PS6 are still under wraps, some leaks and speculation suggest it might utilize a 192-bit memory bus. This would be a narrower bus than the PS5's 256-bit interface, and significantly narrower than some high-end PC GPUs. Here are some potential reasons and considerations behind this design choice: cost effectiveness and die space. A narrower memory bus requires fewer connections and takes up less space on the GPU die. This can translate to lower manufacturing costs and potentially allow for a smaller overall chip, benefiting both Sony and the consumer. Targeting specific resolutions and performance tiers. While a wider bus offers higher raw bandwidth, a 192-bit bus can still provide ample performance for resolutions like 1440p. Perhaps Sony aims for the PS6 to excel at resolutions slightly below the high end, like 4K 120 or 8K, while keeping costs in check. Now, at first, that may seem like, whoa, why would they do that? Why would they purposely make it, why would they purposely focus on lower resolutions? This is where Mark Cerny's work with Project Amethyst, PSSR, and FSR with AMD, this is where this comes in, where it's like, if the idea is just make your game 1080p or just make your game 1440p, let the AI upscaler do the rest of the work. It begins to kind of make more sense. It says here, focus on other performance enhancements. Memory bus width is only one aspect of the overall GPU performance. Sony might be investing heavily in other areas like faster memory speeds, potentially GDDR7, as mentioned in some predictions, architectural improvements like AMD's UDNA, or advanced rendering techniques like PSSR to compensate for a narrower bus and still achieve impressive performance. Some sources point towards the PS6 having impressive specs despite a potential narrower bus width, like this Reddit discussion mentioning 24 to 32 gigabytes of GDR7 RAM or memory with a 256-bit bus potentially reaching 1 terabyte of bandwidth. I don't know about that. Exploiting new technologies. New generation consoles are likely to leverage on-chip cache extensively, minimizing the reliance on external memory access. This could allow for a narrower bus without significantly impacting overall performance. And it says here, it's crucial to reiterate that these are currently speculations and leaks. The final PS6 specs will be revealed closer to its release. However, the considerations outlined above offer plausible explanations as to why Sony might choose a 192-bit memory bus, balancing performance goals with practical considerations like cost and technological advancements. I mean, that's why I looked into this, because I'm like, man, I could see Sony trying to make something like this work in order to sell a cheaper PlayStation 6. Like a PlayStation 6 that offers performance that doesn't seem less. It seems to do exactly what you would expect the PS6 to do, but I don't know. I don't know. You think Sony will be price conscious with the PS6? I see you guys talking about Battlefield in the chat. We're going to talk about that in a minute. PS6 will be a monster. Yeah, I mean, you're saying they'll let AI take care of the rest. Don't be surprised that the PS6 is barely more powerful than the PS5 Pro, but way superior AI workloads and frame gen. I mean, yeah, the more I think about it, the more it seems like that could be the way to launch an affordable PlayStation 6. You know? I don't know, man. I don't know. This is what concerns me about the next gen consoles is the timing. People feel like it's way too soon to be hearing about this stuff. The specs. I mean, what's that leap really going to look like? The pricing. But I don't know, man. I trust Mark Cerny. If there's anybody I'd want, there to develop another console for Sony, it would definitely be Mark Cerny at this point in time. Ansel D'Angelo, a member for 19 months, says, "Hey, ABG, kicking off my birthday, hanging out with you in the chat before my friends come get me. Thanks for helping me start it on a good note." Well, happy birthday. Happy birthday, bro. That's awesome. I hope you have a good time. We're kicking off his birthday. What an honor. Good stuff, man. Thank you for being a member, by the way. And a member for 19 months. I really appreciate that support, man. Good stuff. Everybody wish Ansel D'Angelo a happy birthday. It's interesting because I see everybody with their names, and because it's showing the @ sign, it's giving me like not different names, but the NVIDIA and AMD are implementing more cache to help the lower memory bus. Okay. Hypothetically, does this mean that day one PlayStation PC games could run better on the next Xbox through Steam? I don't know. I mean, I guess it would depend on just... I mean, the thing about the Magnus APU, which is the Xbox APU, the thing about that is we have explicit details like compute units. I don't think we know the exact RAM, but we know the compute units. We have a shot of the APU, and it's pretty large. It's very large, actually. And based off of everything we learned, assuming it's all true and that, that like that these leaks are legitimate, people in the know are saying like, yeah, this thing's going to be more than $1,000. Like this thing, like Microsoft is going all in with trying to make an extremely powerful, capable piece of hardware, but you're going to have to pay for it. And so if that is a situation where it's like you buy this next gen Xbox for like $1,200, which I just, it sounds so absurd to me. Like I can't imagine it being $1,200, but let's just say it is. You boot up Steam, I don't know, a Sony Live Service game drops, and yeah, it's running better. It's running better on this next gen Xbox via Steam, but you're gonna pay for it. You get what I'm saying? Like you're gonna be running it on hardware that probably costs at least $1,000, maybe more. So yeah, I don't know. At that point, it feels more like it does feel more like a PC. Like right now, you could buy a really expensive premium PC and run games significantly better on that, certain PlayStation games or all PlayStation games that are available on PC. You can run it better and they'll look better than they look on the PS5 or even the PS5 Pro, but you are paying for it. So it just seems like it's going to be a matter of you get what you pay for type situation. The highest price the base PS6 can get is $600 without the disc drive, or else it'll be absolute chaos. I agree with that. Tarnished, I do agree with that. If Sony comes in with a PS6 more expensive than $600, and I'm not saying they won't. I still think they might. This is why I think they might be shifting, dude. Like this is why I try to tell people, like, this is why Hiroki Totoki says we're focused on MAUs. This is why Sony is like, okay, we'll just put Helldivers on Xbox. This is why Sony's like, we still need to keep investing in live service. I think it's because they are preparing where it's like, we have no choice but to price this PlayStation 6 at $700 or $800. And if they do that, there's just no way around it. Like that will be disastrous for the home console market. In the sense of things ultimately, I think would be, I said disastrous, but I think in the end it would be fine because it's like, well, people are going to keep playing on their PS5s or buying PS5s over PS6s. But there will be people buying PS6s and next-gen Xboxes, but especially PS6s. It's just that, if Sony is... I'll put it to you this way. If Sony sold 1.1 million PS4s at launch with the PS4, well, maybe launch isn't... Yeah, going with the launch stuff isn't good. I think it would take the PS6 more than half the time to reach 40 million units if it was sold at $700 or more dollars. Because there's just no way an $800 console is going to keep pace with a $500 console. That's just not possible. It doesn't matter what it's offering, doesn't matter what it's doing. Price is going to be everything. And Sony is in between a rock. Like people, I don't think people understand that Sony's in between a rock and a hard place with the PS6. And I think it's going to become more apparent the closer we get. They're in between a rock and a hard place. They're not in the position that Nintendo's in where your previous console was an underpowered, I don't want to say like a joke of a console, but it's just like, dude, like it couldn't even do 720p in some cases. Like it was less powerful than a freaking Xbox One. So the only expectation from Nintendo is you got to make something that's just a little bit more contemporary, like, something that's passable. You don't have, you know what I mean? Like nobody's expecting PS5 Pro power or even PS5 power from the Switch 2. So that's what they do. And that's fine. People mostly accept that. Microsoft they don't give a shit anymore. They're like, dude, we're a publisher now. We'll make a console, but shit, what's that? You want power? We'll give you power. You're going to pay for that power. And it's going to be, it's going to be Windows based. Sony's in this position where it's like, well, you won the high-end console market, Sony. But where do you go from here? You have the PS5. You still have people on PS4 that you have to move over. You have the PS5 Pro, which is the best console ever made, of course, but also $700. Where do you go from here? And dude, Mark Cerny has his work cut out for him. Sony's marketing team has their work cut out for them. There are many contentious external factors going against the PlayStation 6. Moore's Law is really slowing down. High inflation, cross-gen dilemma, generational change, fatigue, PS Gen barely starting, no exclusives, as in like maybe cross-gen. Titus says Moore's Law is speeding up. AI and frame gen are increasing it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there could be another side to this where maybe I'm just totally overestimating how difficult it will be. Maybe it really won't be that difficult. I mean, let's face it, man. Everybody hates the idea of something until it's there. You know, people hated the idea of the PS5. They didn't hate it, but people were like, oh, I don't think we need a PS5 yet. PS4 is great. Then the PS5 drops and you're like, I need it. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, all right. Well, people hated the idea of the PS5 Pro and then it drops, but I don't know. I mean, the PS5 Pro, I don't know. I don't think it did that well. It did well enough, but I don't think it did that well. Like, I'll put it to you this way. I don't think the PS5 Pro is doing anywhere near as well as the PS4 Pro. How could it? It's freaking, you know, it's like $300 more expensive. There's no way it can be doing as well as the PS4 Pro. I don't know, man. I just don't know how Sony's going to maintain the momentum. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Sony had incredible momentum going into the PS4. I mean, it was like a freight train, dude. They had incredible momentum. And that momentum kept up going into the PS5. They had incredible momentum, even more momentum going into the PS5. The only thing that got in the way was the pandemic and the chip shortage. Going into the PS6, I do not know how they maintain that same momentum. I feel like it's not there. I feel like people are very much like, well, you have your enthusiasts. Well, they will be there day one. You have the hardcore, but outside of that, I don't see people. I don't see a desire. You know, I see contentment. That's what I see. I see people content with their PS5. Actually, I see the opposite of contentment. I see people saying, I don't want another console. Like, PS5 needs to do more. You know, like, it feels like it hasn't even really truly begun. And these are all things that are working against the PlayStation 6. And the reality is Sony's going to be out here on their own. And that's what makes it even more interesting, is there's going to be like no competition, dude. And it really does feel like I'm not trying to like look at it in a negative light. I'm just trying to be a realist about it, in that it does seem like the next generation of consoles is going to be, God, I hate to say this. You know what? Now that it really is just, it sounds bad. There's no way around it. I think it will be the beginning of the end of the golden age of consoles. And I think the golden age probably would be viewed as the last 30 to 35 years, which is a long time, maybe the last like 25 years. But I do think that we are truly going to be crossing a threshold that makes it clear that when we look back at things like the PS4 and the Xbox One and the 360 and the PS3 and the PS2 and the original Xbox, and even going further back, you know, with Nintendo and the N64 and even like the NES and Sega and all that stuff, I think it's going to become clear that yeah, that was an entire age of the gaming industry that is over. And this is a new age. I don't know. Maybe it sounds dramatic, but it's like, it's not to say that consoles are going anywhere. Unico, I'm not trying to scare you, bro. Look, I'm not saying consoles are going anywhere. They're not. Like look at Microsoft. Microsoft if there's anybody right now that should just look you in the face and say, we're done with this bullshit, it's Microsoft, bro. Like, they have every incentive in the world to abandon hardware. And they're not. Because it's just like, well, yeah, consoles can still have a place. Consoles are not leaving. I just use the term the golden age because I think that consoles are just going to stay exactly where they are. Like, it is going to stagnate, and potentially we're going to see a complete slowdown, maybe even a halt, where it's like you're going to see this hardware releasing and these companies are going to begin to settle for less and less sales. And you already see that shift with the PS5 Pro where it's like less sales, higher profitability. Because it's going to be a harder sell. Because people are stagnated on the PS4 and the PS5. I think it's just going to be something that, like I said, I don't think there is any more growth to be had. You know, maybe I'm making it sound dramatic. It's like, it's the beginning of the end. I know that sounds dramatic. I think I'm just trying to say, like, there is no more growth. I don't know how Sony can grow the premium console market. I have no idea. I think the PS6 might be their last big push where it's like they'll try, but I think Sony is absolutely preparing for a alternative outcome where it's like, okay, what's the plan B? The plan B is exactly what we're seeing Hiroki Totoki and company implementing now. The plan B is, okay, we did not put every single one of our eggs in the PS6 basket. So if the PS6 fails to gain traction in the way that the PS4 and the PS5 did, and it seems clear that it peaked and it's going to start slowly going down, we are already heavily involved in live service. We are already, we're already trying to put our live service games in other places. We're making movies. We're making TV shows. We invested in studios. We made improvements to PS Plus. And to be clear, this doesn't mean that the PS6 won't be a priority. It doesn't mean that the PS6 is going to be incredibly important to Sony. But I'm just saying that, like, if Sony puts every single one of their eggs in the PlayStation 6 basket and it gets off to a sluggish start and it just turns out that, like, yeah, the console market is completely stagnant, Sony would be beyond screwed. Like, they would be in a lot of trouble. That's why they're preparing now. Like, they're implementing the plan. They are in the process of planning that plan B. They're putting together that plan B because there is, whether people want to accept it or not, there is a real possibility that the PS6 is going to be the PS6 generation is going to be a very, very different generation than any PlayStation fan had expected. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it's like the PS6 generation is for the hardcore, not the masses. The PS5 is for the masses. If that's how this plays out, then it's not bad for us because we'll get exactly what we want from Sony. But it does mean that the heyday, the idea of Sony selling another 100 million units with the PS6 is just not happening. That actually seems like a likely outcome, to be honest. It does. And that's because I want you to think right now, like, if you just bought a PS5 Pro right now, or if you have a PS5 Pro right now, there's a chance you're going to buy the PS6. I know that sounds antithetical because, well, wait, wouldn't you be no, if you bought the Pro, it's because you're a hardware enthusiast. You're a PlayStation hardware enthusiast. You're stoked for something like the Pro. You'll be there for the PS6. Think about all the base PS5 owners. Think about all the base PS5 owners that look at the Pro and are like, are you effing kidding me? That's what Sony has to deal with. That's what Sony has to contend with. And I don't know, man. Sony could have and let me paint a different picture. Maybe Sony has the craziest plan where they're going to be like, bro, they're not even ready for what we got. We're going to have the craziest launch lineup for the PS6, the craziest exclusive lineup. Bloodborne's coming back. They're not ready. They're not ready. We're going to have an exclusive Batman game, the whole 9 yards. They could be getting ready to go balls to the wall with the launch of the PS6. We got MGS1 remake lined up already with Konami. All this shit. Who knows what they could be doing? That is a possibility. They got Fizzant from Kojima already lined up. These could all be things that we just are not privy to yet. Spider-Man 3, and Sony's going to go crazy, bro. We got Concord 2, you know. This could be, because like I said, I don't think Sony's just going to go quietly into the night, man. I don't think so. I don't think, even if the cards are stacked against Sony going into the PS6, where it's like, dude, people are content with GTA 6 on the PS5. How the hell are you going to get people to move over? They're like, we got this. Just let us cook, right? Like we've been, this ain't our first rodeo. We know how to rally. And I don't doubt that. I don't. I just try to keep in mind that we do have a new generation of leadership. And there is a chance that they, you know, is the age of Hiroki Totoki and Hideaki Nishino and their marketing team, are they going to know how to generate the same excitement that the PS4 did? Like, how did Sony generate that excitement at the end of the PS3 generation, going into the PS4 generation, going into the PS5? Can you do that? Do you know how to do that? Because that's what you're going to need. You're going to need that, I think, multiplied by 2. And I don't know. People look at Sony now and they're like, well, Sony seems like a lot of people look at Sony as a company that just kind of, or like PlayStation, like they've kind of become sterile. You know, they become cookie cutter, they become predictable and all this stuff, you know, like too predictable. And some people just think it's lame. And it's like, well, I don't know. I understand, again, like you look at stuff like Ghost of Yotei and people are like, it just looks like more Ghost of Tsushima. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing to me, but I guess I'm just trying to point out that when I look at the PlayStation 6 generation right now in July of 2025, knowing that the PlayStation 6 generation is multiple years away, 2027, possibly 8 or 9, I think it's a coin flip. I really do. I think it's very much either Sony is taking a completely radically different approach that is going to leave people looking at each other like, holy shit, this is not really how we expected this to go down. Like, wow, Sony really has changed. Like, this is it. Like, they're really going in a different direction. It's either going to be that, or it just seems like it's going to be that because they're keeping everything close to the chest and they're going to go berserk with the PS6. I don't know. I don't know. If I were to just look at history, if I were to look at the history of the PlayStation brand, I'm going to say they're going to go crazy because that's what they did with the PS4, or at least that's what they tried to do with the PS4. That's what they did at the end of the PS3. That's what they did with the PS5. But again, man, Hiroki Totoki, he was the CFO and he's the CEO now. Hideaki Nishino, he seems to be an OG. I don't know. Hideaki Nishino, he's been with the company for a very long time. He clearly understands the history of PlayStation, but we don't know exactly. We've never seen a console launch with Hideaki Nishino being in charge. Just like we never saw a console launch with Jim Ryan being in charge. Just like we never saw a console launch with Andrew House being in charge. Jack Tretton, you know, I don't know. All I know is I try to pay attention to what these executives have to say and get some insight into like, what are, you know, how do they view the industry? How are they viewing their, you know, the console right now? And I don't know. I just think they have to prepare for all possible outcomes, frankly. I think that's really what Sony has to do. And Yaron with a $5 super chat says, collective shout, want to get rid of Detroit Become Human. If it happens, all Sony exclusives will be delisted. Only Nintendo games will be left to buy. All of Sony's exclusives will be delisted, bro. Holy shit. Sorry, Jim Ryan. Come back, please. No, I think Jim Ryan, he well, here's what you guys have to keep in mind, and this is another interesting viewpoint. When you think about Andrew House, you think about Jack Tretton, you think about even Sean Layden, like what was the objective and what was the goal of these executives? Well, their only goal at that time was, dude, the PS3 went from being practically DOA to resurrected. It made a comeback. Our only goal right now is to make sure that we maintain that going into the PS4, and we make sure the PS4 has the exact opposite launch that the PS3 did. And they did that. That's why, if you notice, that's why Andrew House left. Jack Tretton left. They all left because they knew that from this point forward, you're at the peak of the mountain. You're supposed to climb higher. And you have to chart that. And they're like, you know what? We got the PS3 to be a success. And then we made sure that the PS4 launch was a major success. And then enter Sean Layden. Sean Layden makes sure he ensures that the second half of the PS4 is a major success, even more successful than the end of the PS3 gen. Then you get Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan's goal is, how do I make the PS5 even more successful than the PS4? And way more successful than the PS3 ever was. And he actually did it. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. You know, for all the flack that people give Jim Ryan, the fact of the matter is he made the PS5 the single most profitable console generation for Sony ever. But the thing is, Jim Ryan also retired. And why do you think he retired when he did? Some people think he could have gotten fired. He dropped the ball with the live service thing. But as we know, and we learned through Shuhei Yoshida, that it wasn't actually Jim Ryan that really messed up. Well, he kind of did. He was definitely responsible in a big way. But it was Kenichiro Yoshida. Kenichiro Yoshida gave the mandate to Jim, live service. It was up to Jim to figure out how the hell you're going to do it. He wanted to retire and drink his wine. But if you look at the timing of when Jim retired, he kind of did allude to this, by the way. It's like, we're leaving PlayStation 5. We're leaving PlayStation in the best spot it's ever been in. And so the stakes are raised each time. So now, if you're in the position of Hideaki Nishino and Herman Holst, as well as Hiroki Totoki, and we'll say Hideaki Nishino. I think this is really on Hideaki Nishino's shoulders, talking about the platform side. His job, God, I do not envy it. His job is, okay, Hideaki, how are you going to make the PlayStation 6 even more successful than the PS5? Bro, it's like, holy shit. How do you do that? Well, how did Jim Ryan do it from the PS4? Well, no, first, how did Andrew House and company do it with the PS4? That was I'm not saying it was easy, but it was like, it's kind of in your face, right? Like, okay, so look at everything you did at the PS3. Look at everything you did with the first couple years of the PS3. Do the opposite of that. Also, look at what Microsoft's doing and how it's blowing up on them. Do the opposite of that. And they're just like writing, okay, do that. Okay, gotcha. We got it. We have the recipe for success. And that's what they did. Just do the opposite of what you did at the beginning of the PS3. Do the opposite of what Microsoft just did with the Xbox One. Boom. You win. Okay. Jim Ryan comes in and he looks at this. He's like, okay, how do I make the PS5 even more profitable? Look at Jim Ryan's marketing cycle, dude. Jim Ryan comes in, goes crazy, future of gaming event. Market. Get people hyped about the fucking box art of the PS5. Okay, make the PS5 seem like something that you don't just want, you absolutely need. You know, don't let people know that Horizon's cross-gen. Not yet. Don't let people know that GT7 is going to be cross-gen. Don't talk about that yet. Just build hype around the PS5. Build that momentum. Let Mark Cerny flex that SSD. You know what I mean? That's a weird sentence, bro, but go crazy. Go crazy with it. And that's what they did. They went crazy. And one of the things that Jim Ryan talked about constantly was having a strong launch lineup. And goddamn, they had a strong launch lineup, man. And even the first year or two of the PS5, like they had the pipeline ready to go. And there was also a wider plan in place where Jim Ryan was like, okay, well, all right, well look, let's do more premium accessories. That's a way we can make the PS5 generation more profitable. Let's do PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium. All these different things that Jim and his team came up with to extract more money out of gamers and the people who are in the ecosystem. Not in an unfair way, but just having more options. PSVR 2, stuff like this. The premium headset, the DualSense Edge, all these different things, the PlayStation Portal. So now Jim understood the basic idea of, all right, well, if we can't double the player, because think about this. You know what Jim Ryan didn't do? Jim Ryan didn't sell double the amount of consoles. He sold the same amount. The PS5 has sold the same amount as the PS4, unless it's slowing down. But then you got GTA 5 on the horizon, so I don't think it's going to slow down. He sold the same amount. So he's like, okay, well, I can't sell double the amount of consoles. I can't even sell 1/3 more. Instead, let's start, let's offer more premium accessories, more tiers for PlayStation Plus. We've seen that, and that's what has made the PS5 generation so successful. I'm just trying to get in the mindset of if I was now in charge of the PlayStation division in its entirety, the next generation is entirely up to me. How would I make the PlayStation 6 more successful than the PS5 without, and this is the important part, without essentially like bankrupting studios and basically like losing a shit ton of money? That's the important part. I don't know. Dude, this is why I'm like, I do not envy. I know that these guys get paid really good money, and they get paid really good salaries to work these positions and be in these, in these leadership roles. But holy shit, dude, the market is like more volatile than ever before. And I don't know, like, do you triple up? Do you say, listen, we have to try to extract even more money from the PlayStation fan base that's there, from that 80 to 90 to 100 to 120 million users? We have to extract even more money. What does that mean? Make even more premium accessories, have even more hardware options, have even more accessory options, do more with PlayStation Plus, offer more tiers. Well, that's one angle. Expansion. How do you expand? Things like Helldivers 2 on Xbox. How far do you take that? I don't know. What about exclusivity? How expensive is Spider-Man 3? $400 million? Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Spider-Man 3 is just a cool $400 million. We're supposed to make that exclusive on the PlayStation 6? No, we got to release that on the PS5. Well, do you think that's going to hurt the, uptake of the PlayStation 6? Yes, it will. It absolutely will. Well, do we have any games that we can make exclusive to just the PlayStation 6? Maybe a remake, maybe a Bloodborne remake. I don't know. Who's even making that? How do you not mess that up? I don't know, man. I don't know what Sony's solution to all this is going to be, but I do feel like Sony's own success has kind of, I'm not saying it's gotten in the way, but it's like it's you see this stuff all the time, man. It's like you see with like successful music artists where they put out a hit song and a hit album. It's like, okay, your next album, how are you going to top it? See people who put out successful YouTube videos. It's like, wow, your video was a huge success. How are you going to top it? That's the struggle with success, is that like once you hit, it's even when we look at these studios, look at what Naughty Dog did with The Last of Us Part 2 or even The Last of Us Part 1 or Uncharted 4. How are you going to top that? How are you going to do better than that? Cory Barlog's next game, how is he going to top God of War 2018? And you start to realize, like, holy shit, dude, this is not, the margin for error, man, it's so great at that point. We're just one slip up. I was listening to, I think the most recent episode of Sacred Symbols, and they had this really interesting write-in, or this person asked this question where they were like, how is Sony going to be able to manage their games, essentially, like knowing they're so expensive, and and this is the important part, how high the expectations are from the gamers. And it's interesting because I think it may have been Colin who said it, but it was like, there's an expectation in this industry, specifically from the consumer, where if Sony came out with The Last of Us Part 3 or Spider-Man 3 or even a new IP from one of their prolific studios, their big AAA studios, and it was like abundantly clear that there was cutback on the graphical fidelity, or it looked more like a AA game, Sony's going to get fucking steamrolled. Absolutely steamrolled and dragged for that. I mean, look at things like Spider-Man with the friggin' Puddlegate bullshit. That's Spider-Man, dude. That's Insomniac. It's like one of the best looking games out there. And you see people doing that shit. It's like, you can understand why there's this kind of pressure where Sony's like, yeah, we can't go backwards. We can't do that. And the studios probably understand that as well. You can't go backwards. And so there is this level of expectation where, okay, well, how do we make the games look even better? It's probably going to be even more expensive. It's probably going to take even more development time. And another thing I heard is, I think Colin said this as well. He's like, Sony doesn't want to do that. Sony doesn't want to put more time and money into these games. It's already too much. But what other option do they have? Put less time and money into them and then watch people destroy their games? This is the problem with chasing infinite growth. Well, I don't know, man. I don't know how this is going to play out, but if we haven't hit a ceiling, it feels like we are this close to hitting that ceiling and hitting it hard, where it becomes abundantly clear to everybody, the consumer, the business executive, the developer, everybody in between, the investor, that, okay, yeah, it's maxed out. This is as far as it can go. We know down this business model, down this specific path, we've taken it as far as it can go. The counter argument is Sony can do both AA and AAA games if they focus on great gameplay and ingenious design philosophies. AAA releases once every 1 to 2 years, 2 or 3 AA games. People will be happy. I mean, it does feel like at some point maybe something does have to shift. I think this is another reason why Sony wants to have more successful live service games, because I think in their mind, it's like those successful live service games can hold people off in between those really long development cycles from some of our studios. And it kind of makes sense. And that's why I feel like The Last of Us multiplayer would have made so much sense, because it's like, hey, it's okay if you got to wait 5 or 7 years for another Naughty Dog game, because now you got this Last of Us multiplayer live service that you can keep playing for the next 3 or 4 years or whatever. Not the ideal solution for everybody, but, you know, an option nonetheless. PS6 can be even more successful than PS5. PS5 was hit by COVID. But that's the thing, man. I did think that as well until I began to realize the economic reality is that this time it's not going to be COVID or a chip shortage that gets in the way of the PlayStation's momentum. It's going to be just, frankly, the economic blowback that is still basically, it was caused by that. Well, to be fair, it wasn't just COVID alone and the pandemic. It's years and years and years and years of things building up, but that just seemed to be the kind of tipping point where it took something like that to really be like, okay, now the rubber band is about to break. And I think economically we're kind of in the process of watching that in like slow motion. And it's why nobody actually knows what the fuck to do in a way. And all these companies, you know, these corporations at a high level essentially operate the same way that we do on a lower level, where it's like in the same way that you're going to evaluate your finances, you're going to evaluate what makes sense for you and try to be logical about it and not make dumb financial decisions that are going to hurt you or potentially put you in financial danger. These corporations operate the same way during times like this. That's why you saw these corporations not giving a flying fuck during COVID, because the money was just everywhere. Money was just in abundance everywhere, and it was flowing everywhere. And that's why companies are like, shit, bro, now's the time to invest. Invest in everything. Invest in all areas. And nobody really wanted to think like, maybe you should slow the fuck down, because a lot of this is artificial. A lot of this is artificially driven, and the bubble's going to burst. And when it does, and frankly, that's why you've seen a lot of people just like kind of get theirs and then get out. And a lot of people get screwed in the process. It's a complicated thing. And it's, you know, it does become somewhat philosophical, as most things do, if you look deep enough into it. But the point is, even though it may not be a global pandemic that gets in the way of the PlayStation 6, now it's going to be the ramifications and repercussions, economically speaking, that began that ripple. The first ripple came from COVID and the pandemic, and it will be felt in 2026, 2027, 2028, and who knows for how many years. So, yeah, I don't know, Irfan. It's not going to be a shortage this time. It's going to be, instead of there being a chip shortage, there's just going to be a money shortage, seemingly, for a lot of people. There's going to be where they just won't be able to afford a PS6. Or if it's not a money shortage, it's going to be a shortage of interest, because they're going to see the games and they're going, you know, like is Horizon 3, we were talking about this yesterday. It's like, is Horizon 3 going to sell a PlayStation 6? I mean, it will sell some, but like I think about Horizon 3 because I remember people's reaction to Horizon Forbidden West. When Horizon Forbidden West was first announced for the PS5 as like, this is a big system seller. This is a big reason why we want you hyped for the PS5. Before we learned it was cross-gen, people were stoked. People were losing their minds over it. And then it came out, and then a year or two later, it seemed like out of nowhere, people just were like, actually, maybe Horizon's a bit played out now. Maybe we do want something else. But Sony looks at the fact that, bro, this franchise sold 38 million units lifetime. Hell yeah, we're doing Horizon 3. And I just wonder, like, I'm going, dude, it's going to be so fucking interesting. I have to tell you, like, I had immense hype going into the PS5 generation. I had immense hype for the current generation in general. Believe it or not, this might be the first console generation where my intrigue, I think like hype may be not fully, but somewhat replaced or balanced with, I'm just fascinated to watch this unfold. because I just know that it's not going to go the way I think in my head. And that's weird because I never really had that thought before with previous hedonia. Yeah, I can't experience pleasure anymore. No, I mean, I do still feel hype. Like, I'm going to be hype for the PS6. Once it becomes real and not just an idea or a leak or words on an article. Once it actually becomes real, the hype will solidify. But it's just, I know going into next gen, like, this is going to be quite possibly the most bizarre and radically different generation that we've seen maybe ever. Truly, I don't know if maybe that's taking it too far. There have been some weird console generations, absolutely. And there have been, I mean, you look at what happened with the PS3 and the Xbox 360, where, like, there was like an economic crisis at that time as well, and that's what delayed the next gen consoles, and that's why the next gen consoles came in kind of underpowered in some instances. So it's we have seen craziness like that before, but there's just, I don't know, there's an added layer here that I feel like, man, there really is something. It feels like there's something bubbling beneath the surface that was never there before, that it's beginning to make its presence known. God, I make it sound like a fucking monster or something. But interesting times nonetheless, man. Man, I really just went on and on right there. Kind of like talking to women. It never goes quite as you picture. It's no longer a necessity for gamers to get the latest hardware right away, since cross-platform and gen are commonplace now. That's another interesting aspect. Yeah. It is really interesting to think that now more than ever, people are entrenched in their live service games. People do expect cross-gen. Like, dude, I went into the beginning of this generation saying cross-gen is a huge mistake. Sony shouldn't do it. Microsoft is making a mistake doing it. Just to realize that no, you're just. It's not necessarily. I don't even necessarily know that I was wrong. I guess I was wrong because clearly it didn't impact the PS5 negatively. But it's just that, like, you just don't know yet, and that's what I find interesting looking back at the way I talked about this generation. Is like, I did think that cross-gen was like, wow, this is bad. Like, Sony's really making a huge mistake here. And then, similar to how I felt about them releasing their games on PC and backporting games on PC, I was like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, Sony, this is looking spooky. What are you doing, man? And it's like, well, no, it all just contributed to making the PS5 generation the most profitable so far. Oh. And so it's like, okay, well, surely the PS5 is selling poorly then. This hurt the PS5 sales. It's like, no, it's doing just as good as the PS4. It's like, oh. So there's every chance that, everything I'm thinking, like the negative side of it, could be wrong too, where it's like, dude, the PS6 is going to do just as good as the PS5 and 4. Even with Sony doing all this extra crap. Like, it's going to be perfectly fine. I may be just totally overthinking it, but it's hard. It's hard not to consider these facts. It's hard not to consider, like, live service black hole games, cross-gen, people being comfortable where they are. Like you're saying, the FOMO factor being lower than it's ever been. People don't really fear missing out anymore. In fact, it seems like more and more people are just willing to wait. There's more games to play than ever before. All these things, I think, work together. They work in tandem to make the traditional expectation to alter it. It was coming from a place of expectations of buying into the PS5. Sony simply misled us and even lied a lot of times. The thing is, and I know that this sounds like I'm giving, I know it seems like I'm giving, I'm like making an excuse for a corporation. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to understand that these corporations are run by people and mistakes are made. And I look back at some of the stuff, like, dude, it reminds me of that time when Jim Ryan got freaking crucified, bro, because he forgot that Sony made it clear that they were going to give I forget, there was like a free upgrade path for Horizon, and he forgot, and he basically said it was going to be $10, and he got crucified. And he just, you could tell, like, dude, him and whoever was on his PR team that day, they literally just forgot that they said they would do that. And it was like, you lying piece of shit. It's like, oh man, this is why you got to dot your I's and cross your T's, man. Because holy shit, you know, like, you're the devil now. You're the devil. And it was so funny watching that, because it was like, it was so obvious, like, bro, they literally just forgot. And it's like that, I guess that's what happens when, you know, it's a reminder that these corporations are run by human beings that make mistakes. And sometimes they make those mistakes right in front of everybody. And I think a lot, I'll be honest, I think a lot of the misleading that Sony did wasn't purposeful misleading. More so, it was, they're really not sure what the hell to do right now, because things are not, like, we are truly in an unprecedented situation where there's a global pandemic. They have a new gen console. They can't sell enough because they can't make enough, but, you know, everything's riding on this. They have generated the most insane hype with these games and their showcases, and that's why I feel like I don't think Sony made a mistake looking back on it, hindsight 2020. GT7 was announced as a PS5 only game, and that was supposed to be the biggest system seller. Keep that in mind, because GT is the best-selling PlayStation franchise ever. That was supposed to be you're going to buy a PS5 for this game moment. And then as the chip shortage came into reality, you know, it came into existence, and it became clear that people could not buy PS5s, Sony was like, oh, you know what? Actually, it's releasing on PS4 too. Because that's the thing. They realized, like, we would have settled for less sales potentially of this game if it was moving consoles, but now it can't move consoles because we don't have consoles to move. So now we have to try to optimize the sales. And it's just always interesting to look back on that, where it goes to show that, dude, Sony was making changes in the moment. Literally, like, in the moment, in weeks, in months' time. They were adjusting on the fly. And I just think that that's what we continue to see. I think that we're seeing that between Sony and Microsoft. We're like, dude, these companies are just adjusting on the fly, man. It changed. This is why, like, you know, with the whole job listing thing from Sony, a lot of PlayStation players are pointing out, they're like, dude, look at what Sony said in their last earnings report. They can't lie to shareholders. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. They can't lie to shareholders, but they can change their strategy and then inform shareholders at the next meeting, which is actually in like a week or so. So it's like, you know, it is true that the console market is rooted in expectation. It's rooted in a certain tradition, in a certain way that we do things around here, right? And that's been uprooted in the last 5 to 6 years, and it continues to be uprooted. And that's why so much of this generation has been filled with meltdowns, dude. Like, looking back on it, it's like the meltdowns of, you know, starting with things like, oh my God, Mark Cerny didn't say there was going to be ray tracing in the PS5. And then Mark Cerny had to literally come out and correct that because everybody was freaking out. He's like, no, there will be ray tracing. Like, oh, thank God. And then the meltdown of teraflops. Marketing. Dude, we all fell for the marketing. Xbox players fell for it, where it's like 12 teraflops. Suck it, Sony. You know, that 10 teraflop piece of shit PS5. You get Mark Cerny, he's like, you know, teraflops don't really mean much. Just so you know. But you know, yeah, the good old days. And then we come to the realization, you know, oh, wait, it really didn't mean anything. It didn't. PS5 is doing great. PS5 is performing great. In some cases, PS5 is performing better. How's that possible? And it's because you find out that the teraflops didn't matter. People talk about the SSD, and I feel a little bit bad for Mark Cerny because Mark Cerny didn't lie. I will defend Mark Cerny because he didn't lie. Mark Cerny straight up said his intention, his hope, is that developers will be able to innovate with the SSD and IO throughput of the PS5, but that remains to be seen. That's his hope. As it turns out, that pretty much didn't happen. So yes, people look at that and they're like, oh, you know, they lied about the SSD. It's like, no, it's just they had an idea. Mark Cerny had an idea of like, this could maybe revolutionize game development. And then it's just like, well, it didn't. So, you know, I don't think he wasn't coming from a place of malice or some shit where it's like, I want to lie to these fuckers. But it is interesting to think that we witness that stuff in real time and we latch onto it. And it's like the fucking SSD, bro. Oh my God, the PS5 is going to revolutionize game development. And it sounds so good. It sounds so good, you know? And a lot of it was good, but you just see as time goes by that like, well, it turns out things don't really play out the way that anybody expects. I mean, even Mark Cerny didn't know. You know, he's like, well, this is the best bet this is the best I got. You know, and I'm considered a genius. So here's the best I got. And even he was kind of wrong. And you know, it's just so fascinating to see how all of this is playing out where you know, do you know what the next thing is, by the way, guys? You know what the next thing is? Right now, the popular thing to do is to celebrate the homogenization of the industry. You know, get rid of exclusives and have everything everywhere, play where you want. And I think at first it'll be good. I think people are being naive and not understanding that you do realize that there's a price to be paid for everything. Anything that is good, a price is paid for it. And right now, we don't know exactly what the price is going to be for the homogenization of the gaming industry. But make no mistake, 10 years from now, when everything is homogenized and everything's just the same, you know, like you could do whatever you want. There's going to be a new thing that people are looking at and being like, oh my God, you know, I can't believe this is where we are now. And they're going to look back and be like, you know, I promise you, in the future, people are going to look back and be like, you know, maybe it did, maybe there was some truth to some of this stuff, you know, like the whole idea of like having an identity and having separation and, you know, having less hardware to optimize for, like all these different aspects where eventually it will come to pass if that's the direction we go in, where it's like nothing will be perfect. The exclusivity model is not perfect. The no exclusivity model is not perfect. There is no perfect storefront. There is no perfect game. There is no perfect development team. There is no perfect anything. There's always a price in some way, shape, or form to be paid for anything good. And that's just the way of the universe, bro. That's just nature as we know it. It's not necessarily the fault of any one person or one thing, but I just think it's interesting that like there's been so many cycles in the gaming industry of like we always believe like this is the best way. And I think over time some things we settle on. You know, some things we settle on. Like the idea that people want to play with a controller or people want to play with a mouse and keyboard. And outside of that, not much else. Michael Titus called you fat. He's right, but still. What's going on, bro? Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, the whole idea of the industry becoming more homogenous is like, well, this is going to be beneficial for the consumer. And I'm like, well, yeah, like there's absolutely aspects that will for sure be beneficial for the consumer, But you have to consider more than that. That, again, like, I won't be surprised. Listen, when I think about it, I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, this is beneficial for the consumer and this is beneficial for the corporation. Who's then where's the price being paid? I think the price is going to be paid by the actual developers. You know, I do. Like, I think there's always going to the cost is always going to be placed. Someone's always going to pay the price. We would prefer the corporations to pay it, because fuck these shareholders and fuck their yachts and you know, screw them, right? Screw their greed. We would, I think, ideally prefer to see it. It's not that I'm saying like socialism and whatnot, but or communism. It's just I'm saying that, you know, it does seem like things get a bit out of hand, where it's like, when's enough and enough? And I do think people start to see that and they're like, all right, let's come on. Like, this is getting ridiculous. You know? Like, why does the cost constantly have to be passed on to us? Because the corporation's not going to eat the cost, because they'll see their numbers tank or go down. And if the numbers go down, shareholders get mad because we don't get enough caviar. You know, we don't get our second yacht. And it's like, okay, well, why do we have to pay for that all the time? And so I think as we're entering this new age potentially of, well, now it's all about pro-consumerism. Like, look at Microsoft is the perfect example. I want you to think about this. Microsoft for the last like 5 years has tried to appeal to the consumer. We're all about pro-consumerism. We want what's best for you, the player. You're at the center of what we do. And you know, naturally the consumer's like, hell yeah. Yes, this is great. Save me money. I want to save money. You want to save, everyone want to save money. And to Microsoft's credit, they do it. They stick with Game Pass. They stick with day one releases. And many people like myself and many others are looking around and be like, how are you guys going to make this work? Like, there's like, surely there's something here. Where's the price being paid? Because we know, like, my whole thing with Microsoft this whole time was like, I know you're not paying the price. I know that. Like, I'm not foolish, and most people aren't foolish. Well, I don't know, maybe most people are foolish, but anybody who's paying a little bit of attention, we know, like, Microsoft, you're not going to eat that cost. You're going to make sure you make your profits. That's already established. And I've always tried not to condemn Microsoft for that. That's where it's tough, because it's like, you always have to wonder, like, well, who's to blame? Like, I don't want to blame Microsoft for wanting to make profits, because that's the name of business, right? That's the name of the game. But then again, you think about how much profit they're making, and you're like, oh, well, that's a bit unbalanced and skewed. But that's something I always knew, is that they're going to make their profit. And I always thought to myself, well, if the consumer is saving money and getting a good deal, and Microsoft is still somehow making a profit, then who's paying the price? And what we just recently saw is the proof of, like, okay. So basically the idea is you want to make game development an efficient pipeline that's so efficient, and you want to reduce the headcount, and you want to reduce the cost as much as you can. So that way you can continue to justify, you can continue to give that good deal, so the consumer will be happy, and the consumer will be happy, but you and your shareholders can be happy. So in other words, who's getting squeezed? If not the consumer, if not the corporation, the middleman, the actual worker, the actual developer, the people in the trenches doing this shit. Now, I'm going to back that up where it's like, well, dude, these developers are getting paid real good. For sure. Like, if you have, like, chances are these devs are making really good yearly salaries, getting good benefits, the whole 9 yards. But you begin to see you almost like peek behind the veil a little bit, where you see the reality of, like, but from a higher up from the higher ups position at Microsoft, that's not what they're trying to accommodate. And they want to trim that as much as they possibly can in the name of keeping the consumer happy and keeping the business, the profits flowing smoothly and just continuing to flow. And so this is why I think like this is the way forward, ethics aside. Because there will be people who question the ethics of this, where it's like, well, we got to think about the worker. We got to think about the developer, the people. And yeah, you will see that. But I think as time goes forward, you're going to see the squeeze get more intense. That sounds weird, but you're going to see it get more intense because the consumer's going to realize, you know what, actually, I'm not worried about those devs. I'm not worried about the ethics of this. I'm worried about how much, like, can I get a game for cheap? Can I save money? Yes or no? That's what the consumer is going to worry about. The corporation understands that, and they're going to exploit that over time. And this is why people question, like, why would anybody get into game development in the year 2025? And it's like, I have no idea. Maybe from like an independent standpoint, that's different. But I'm talking about like working with bigger teams, well-known teams, bigger companies, bigger publishers. I mean, and to be fair, not every company is being run like this. There are good companies, there are good publishers that are doing a good job. I don't want to bunch everything together, but it's just we are starting to see more and more. We're inching closer to that reality where if the consumer's not going to pay it, well, we're not fucking paying it. You know, the corporation's not paying it. Maybe these guys can pay it. You know what? Do we even need that guy? Get rid of that guy. Fire that guy. Lay that guy off. Let that clanker take over. Titus with a super chat says, normal people have less spending power. Corps want ever more profits. The pool of consumers in the console space is shrinking. Discuss. Well, you're absolutely right. And that's what I mean. So like, okay, the pool of consumers in the console space is shrinking. People have less spending power. The corporations freak out at that notion. They freak out and they panic because what does that mean? That means, oh, we're at a high risk of making less money and therefore making less profits. Less revenue equals less profits. Less profits equals, stock market stagnation or decline. So this is why you're seeing, Titus, I think really it's just when you word it that way, it does shine a light on like, okay, well, maybe we can't squeeze the consumer anymore because they just can't be squeezed. There's nothing, can't get blood from a stone, right? Like there's just nothing else to extract from them. They literally don't have the money anymore. We bled them dry, or the economic reality has already bled them dry. So who do we squeeze now? And that's when they start cannibalizing, bro. They start looking internally. They start looking at their own business and their own people, and that's why these layoffs that we saw at Microsoft. And I'm not trying to hound on Microsoft because we already talked about it, but I'm just saying that's why people were like, "Holy shit, dude! Like this is a lot. Like this is a full sweep." And it's because they're like, "Yeah, dude. Like we're not fronting that bill anymore. We already got 40 games in development. We're not trying to increase that number. We're trying to decrease that number." Forza Motorsport, yeah, it's a beloved title. Yeah, it's been there since the original Xbox. It doesn't matter. That's what has to be sacrificed now. And maybe that's, that doesn't always have to be a bad thing. Like maybe some of these teams, it's not to be brutal about it, but like, yeah, maybe some of these teams, it's like, you guys had one too many chances and you didn't get it together. I understand that reality as well. Like it's not, Microsoft is not a charity. That's true. And they shouldn't operate as one. But it just gets really spooky when the initial thought is we had to trim down, and we had to cut certain people and close certain teams and cancel certain projects and shutter certain things because they just weren't coming together and they weren't making financial sense. It's like, okay, I mean, it all kind of like makes sense. It's reasonable enough. But then, the truth kind of starts to leak out a little bit. It's like, yeah, they're trying to save a bunch of fucking money to reinvest it in AI infrastructure, and they want to start implementing AI tool sets for their top, specifically their directors, like their directors and their top tier developers. They want to take the top talent that's really good at making video games and then make them just as good at working with AI. And that's like basically that one person who's good at developing video games, good at managing video game development, good at directing video games. If they become proficient in the use of AI tools, that one person is going to replace like 30 jobs. And that's like, that one person is more valuable than probably the 100 developers below them. And that is what, I mean, look, man, if we're talking in terms of pure logic, no emotion, no ethics, none of that, just pure logic. Yeah, that's how these companies operate. They don't give a shit. To them, that's, oh my God. Dude, if we could just pay one person a very large salary and give them great benefits, and they're basically like treated as a very valuable asset to the company, and in turn, we can just get rid of like 50 people over here that we're paying full-time salaries and benefits, and replace them with AI tools that, again, don't need to eat, don't need to sleep. The efficiency is beyond anything a human being could put out. And all you need is that one person essentially managing the AI, or just a couple people managing that AI, managing that system, and interjecting when need be. It's, yeah, dude, that's, I do think that's where we're headed. And I think that what we just saw with Microsoft and what we're seeing is the beginning. Like, that is the signal. Like, in case you were wondering where this is going, here you go. This is phase one, so to speak. And it makes sense why Microsoft's going to be crazy aggressive about it, by the way. Microsoft's going to be crazy aggressive because they're worth like, what, $4 trillion at this point, or 3.5, I don't know, something crazy. And most of that's due to AI and cloud. So yeah, dude, it's like, that's what they're going to do. Sony probably would like to, but I don't know that Sony still seems to not, I don't know how quickly they're going to follow. Nvidia's worth more today. Yeah. Anyway, I know it all sounds really bleak and it sounds depressing. But, I think the reality is there is a certain aspect of it that is depressing, because it's real. And Titus with another super chat says, and that's the first 10 people, 1 trillion company. Yep. The first company that's worth $1 trillion run by 10 human beings. Oh boy. Oh boy. This is why Death Stranding 2 was so topical, man, with some of the stuff it was doing, or in the story. I mean, no spoilers, but yeah, it definitely touches on AI for sure. No matter how much money these corporations make, it won't be enough. If Microsoft, being a $4 trillion company, still seeking growth, there is no stop in corporate greed. Yeah, I agree with that. And it's tough because it's like, what are you going to do about it? And I know that, like, I hate that, but it's like, I think about that sometimes where I'm like, well, shit, what am I going to do about it? It's like, dude, your only option is to save your money and not give them any money. But there's a good chance you're going to, and I know this is why I always come off so defeatist, and I don't mean to, but it's just like, you might find that even though you're saving your money and you're not spending it, you can't expect that to be the difference maker, because there may be 100 other people that aren't even thinking about not giving them their money. They're already giving, in the time you spent contemplating saving your money, 10 other people just gave them their money. This is why it does become concerning, like specifically when talking about PlayStation, where it's like, and I've had to just be like brutally honest with some PlayStation fans, just like I had to with Xbox fans, where it's like, dude, Microsoft is looking at you, and they've drew the line in the sand, and they said, you're either with us or you're not, and we don't care. And I know that a lot of people's initial reaction to that is anger. Like, well, I'm going to go over here, or I'm going to go to them, or I'm just going to walk away. And it's like, that's what I think some people are not understanding, that no longer matters. And that's what's scary, is it used to matter. It used to matter to Sony if you threatened to go to Xbox. It used to matter to Microsoft if you threatened to go to PlayStation. If you threaten to go to Nintendo, maybe that still matters. But even then, Shuhei Yoshida made it clear that Sony doesn't consider Nintendo competition internally. So it's like, this is what's getting kind of spooky out here, man, is you're almost starting to see like these corporations, they're all kind of, the illusion of competition, I think, is still present. Like, I think we still sometimes want to believe there's competition, but in reality, I think it's gone, dude. Like, dude, Sony, when you look at Microsoft, 6 of the top 10 best-selling games last quarter are Microsoft published. Microsoft won. But guess what? So did Sony. Because whose console is it selling on? Sony's. Who's getting 30% of each copy of each game sold by doing nothing but sitting on your ass, if you will. Like, these corporations are finding a way to win together. And that's, at first it seems good because it's like, yes, we can all hold hands and unity and shit. This is great. But then you start to realize that at the end of the day, they're not really doing this for you. You know what I mean? Like, they're doing it for them. And I think that's the reality that may end up rearing its head in the coming years, where the more we kind of, and that's why sometimes I still am hesitant, where it's like, I don't know if I fully buy into this direction we're going in, because it's like, it's true what everybody says, enough will never be enough. If these companies start to partner and find ways to make money together and find ways to make more money than ever before together, that still won't be enough. And if we just say okay to that, and that's the new way things are done, and then suddenly, things start to look even worse than they did before. Things start to come, it's like, oh, shit. This thing that I thought was going to be so good, actually, it's starting to show some real signs of shittiness. I don't know, man. I don't know. New Soul 9 with the $10 chat says, MBG, I made the comments before that they can take the second option, which is removing the things that was making Game Pass and games themselves have a high target count of subs/sales in the first place. It's an interesting option. I think what's interesting, New Soul 9, is right now, Game Pass, I do not believe is the priority for Microsoft. I think it is one of their priorities, but I don't think it's literally number one. I think number one is publishing. Just straight up publishing. Sales of it. Like, one thing I didn't think about or consider was when you look at the Outer Worlds 2, the fact that they dropped the price on it. They were like, actually, we're going to sell it at $70. What does that tell you? They were banking on sales, dude. That's a pretty, it's not shocking, but it is telling that, like, it turns out the company that's dropping their games day one into a subscription service, they're banking on sales, dude. And if they weren't, they would have just kept it at 80. And that's fine. That's not a bad thing. Every company is banking on sales. But this is why I don't think Game Pass is truly the number one priority anymore. It's something that will just remain and that they will continue to feed as long as they can and continue to try to make it make sense, because there is the chance that in the future, Game Pass could be the number one thing in the long-term future. We just don't know. Is that 10 years? Is that 20 years? Is that 30 years? Who the fuck knows? You know? But you better believe Microsoft understands that if they shut down Game Pass and they say Game Pass isn't efficient enough, Game Pass it's too risky, whatever the reason is, and they just get totally corporate about it, there is somebody there that's like, well, what if like 5 years from now somebody else does it, and then that's the right time and it works for them. Microsoft has had this happen to them before, by the way. This is what has screwed so many companies over numerous times in the past, which is, it's not that the idea was bad. What you came up with may actually be the long-term future. You're just too soon. And it's not going to work for you. It's going to work for the next guy 10 years from now, 8 years from now, 5 years from now. So Microsoft needs game sales. Game Pass isn't enough to cut it. Just like for Sony, PlayStation Plus would nowhere be enough to cut it for Sony. PlayStation Plus is supplemental. They need game sales. I don't know, man. I'm not opposed to the idea of Sony and Microsoft partnering more and more at first, but I don't know. It's like seeing these two companies like shake hands in a way, and you think this is great, but then you start to realize that they're smiling and they're laughing at each other because they both know like they have no idea. This is not to their benefit, but we are not there yet, and we might not get there. We might never get there. Maybe this will be a good thing. Maybe the direction we're headed in is a good direction. I'm not entirely sure. I just know that the market still has total control. That's the important thing to understand. No matter how much I talk about the corporations and I talk about the developers and all this stuff and the way they run things, at the end of the day, the market has total control. The market determines what lives and what dies. And the question, and this was another thing I came across on Sacred Symbols that also really piqued my interest, is somebody else on there wrote in and asked the question, who's to blame? Do we blame the corporations? Do we blame the consumer? Is it evenly distributed? Do we blame the developers? And it's like, this is why I try to tell people, like, the corporations have already determined that we lost. And do you know why? Because they won. And I know that sounds so like, well, duh, but it's like, what did they win? They have the telemetry. They have the data. They see how people are playing games, what games they're playing, how many games they're playing, what games they're spending the most time on, what games they're spending the most money on, what games are making the most money. Sony has all of this data, by the way. So does Microsoft. They all know this shit. They have all the facts. They know the market. They know it better than me, better than you, better than anybody. And this is why I try to tell people Sony does not give a single shit what we think. And when I say we, you know who I'm talking about. What we think about them pursuing live service. They couldn't care less because they know something we don't. They know a lot of things we don't. In fact, if they were to invite you or me into their board meeting and give you a presentation and tell you, let us explain note for note, bullet point by bullet point, why we're pursuing live service, you would probably walk out of there feeling stupid if you were against it. And you'd probably feel stupid because you realize, like, holy shit, this isn't even their choice. Like, they didn't determine this. We determined it. The market determined it. And for people like us, or a lot of hardcore or like older, gamers, they are starting to feel like, man, we are getting aged out. We are getting aged out. And it's like, yeah, dude, go look at how much Roblox is worth. You're not stopping that train, bro. Good luck. Good luck. Like, the company that thinks they're going to stop that train is the company that dies and gets steamrolled by another company that understands that's the future, bro. You're talking about millions, tens of millions of kids begging for their parents' credit cards to buy microtransactions, and it works. Fortnite, millions, tens of millions of kids, teenagers, young adults, and even probably some middle-aged adults paying hand over fist for the freaking new, Thomas the Tank Engine fucking skin or some shit. This is what it is. And there's not, I hate to say it, but like, yeah, there's nothing that we can do about it. Like, I'm seeing Battlefield 6 coming up, and people are like, yes, realistic, grounded, 21 realistic military operators. And I see people on the Reddit and shit, and they're like, please, God, DICE, EA, don't do it. Don't do it. And I'm like, you guys just don't get it. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to be defeatist, but you are not living in reality. If you think that Battlefield 6 in the first year of its launch, knowing it's a platform, it's a live service, you think they're not going to start doing crazy, what's the word I'm looking for? Why can't I think of it? Partnerships, I guess. You think they're not going to do collaborations. That's the word I'm looking for. Crazy collaborations. I'm so deterministic. Yeah, I don't know, Titus. I don't know. And Rich Rod with the direct. I'm just saying, they will roll out microtransactions. Nobody cares about that. They will roll out skins. Nobody will care about that. They will say, please keep the skins realistic. At first, when they win everybody over, yes, they will keep it that way. But if Battlefield 6 succeeds in the way that EA wants it to, both sales-wise as well as, player base-wise and just the amount of concurrent players they have, they're not leaving that money on the table. Like, it's the fact that people just watched Call of Duty bring on Beavis and Butthead and American Dad. And everybody's clowning on it. Everybody's clowning on it, and they're shitting on it, and the internet is clowning on it. And it's kind of funny, to be honest. Let me tell you, you're probably going to find out, and the Microsoft's next earnings, or I don't know how much detail they're going to give, but I guarantee you they probably broke records microtransactions wise. They probably made more money than they ever have on microtransactions. I fucking guarantee it. And do you know what that means if that's true? It means you lost. Right? That, like, unfortunately, that's the reality of our existence. You win or you lose. And yeah, and they did the Ninja Turtles as well. And it's like, I'm not saying if you can't beat them, join them. I'm just saying sometimes you got to know when to call it. Sometimes you got to know. Because everybody thinks that if Battlefield 6 somehow takes over Call of Duty, yes, they did it. We're back, baby. Battlefield, realistic, somewhat realistic military shooter. Get that Call of Duty slop out of here. And suddenly all the Call of Duty players flock to Battlefield. You think they're not going to, dude, they would do the exact same thing. Why do you think Call of Duty's doing it now? This isn't, and to be clear, this isn't dooming everything, because here's what I'll add, right? We're talking about the biggest, most prevalent and prominent games. If you don't like any of this shit, you could go buy Ready or Not right now. There you go. That's kind of the beauty of the size of the games industry, where, like I said, there is everything kind of balancing everything out, where you may not like Call of Duty anymore. You may despise it. You may despise Fortnite. And maybe you look at Battlefield and you think, fuck EA, I hate EA. I'm not supporting them. Well, I guess that's it. I guess those are your only options. No, there is an alternative. Now, granted, is it going to have the AAA polish? Is it going to have the biggest production value? No. But it may have exactly what you're looking for. Right? And there are even more alternatives out there. Bro, there's a game inside of Roblox that's apparently a Call of Duty clone that is better than Call of Duty. Somebody made that inside of Roblox. I shit you not. I don't know how we got here, but this is where we are. But I just try to inform people that, because think about it, like, people won't be able to get over what they're seeing unless they understand what they're seeing. When you see things succeeding, it doesn't mean you have to like it. You can have as much disdain in your heart for it as you want. But you will not be able to change the fact alone anyway, by yourself. You will not be able to change the fact that this is what the market wants, dude. And you may not you may end up finding that you are part of a much smaller market, a much more niche market. And that is, this is why people like to see what they like go mainstream. Or sometimes people despise that because they're afraid the moment it goes mainstream, that's when it gets ruined. But ideally, what everybody wants is the thing that you like, you want it to be successful. You want it to do well, you want it to be successful, and you want it to be exactly what it needs to be, what it should be. And I don't know. I just find it super interesting. Maybe I am coming off overly negative, but here's the positive. It may not be you or a lot of other people you see complaining about it, but the reality and the fact of the matter is there are millions upon millions upon millions of gamers that are having the time of their life playing Call of Duty. They're going to be playing Battlefield. They're playing Fortnite. They're playing Roblox, and they're loving it. And they're having fun. And you know what? That's a positive. It just is. It's an objective positive where it may not be for you. And in fact, it may make you throw up in your mouth a little bit. But there's a lot of people out there that are having a good time. And I don't know how you argue with that. I've never, it's time to go mobile gaming, man. I struggle to argue with people about stuff like this because it's like, I used to be like that for the longest time. I used to be like, I'm going to tell you why this is better than that. But then I realized that it's in the eye of the beholder, man. Like, the idea of trying to convince somebody that the thing they like, they shouldn't like, I'm not in the realm of video games. This is not politics. This is not religion. It's video games. I don't feel like I can do that. It's just like, who the fuck am I, dude? Like what you like, play what you want to play. Who am I to determine what you should enjoy? It's why, it's when I'll never forget when I was having my meltdown over Redfall in 2023. And I stopped in the middle of my rant. And I'm like, you know what, though? I know there's somebody out there right now who booted up Game Pass or bought Redfall and is like, this game's fucking great, dude. I'm having a great time. Like, not, like unironically, right? Like, they're having a great time. Who am I to tell that person they shouldn't be having a good time? That's not my place. Same thing with Concord, right? It's not my place. I will have my opinions and my thoughts, but I do not feel comfortable telling people what they should or shouldn't enjoy and what they should and shouldn't play. And we have a direct donation from Rich Rod. He says, Colt, I can't stand you. Your mama should have been given a life sentence for giving us your punchable face. Oh my God. Go make love to Jez Fruit Cup. Ex Bisque, you can watch. He said Fruit Cup. Bro just said Fruit Cup. I mean, people used to call me growing up, like, as an insult, like fruit cake or some shit. I don't think it's ever been Fruit Cup, though. I got Rich Rod all amped up. We have a super chat from Steven Nearly. He says, any game that asks for more money after spending $80+ for it, I'm not supporting. Helldivers 2 has done its best, in my opinion, but it only costs $40 up front. And that's, dude, that's a sentiment a lot of people share. It's just unfortunately nowhere near enough people feel that way to stop that type of practice from being more than acceptable at this point. Although, to be fair, see, this is where things are kind of interesting, though, because if you think about it, like, Call of Duty can come out with an $80 game every year, $70, $80, I guess it'll be $70, and also basically not expect you, but be like, so you want to buy every battle pass and like every cosmetic and all this shit and just basically keep asking for money. I feel like there are so many other games that if they even thought about doing that, they would get fucking wrecked. And that's fascinating to me. You know, like I almost feel like, I don't know, man, sometimes these really well-known established properties, it's like they truly do exploit their power. We're like, we know you want this, so we'll do what we want. You know, it's like they really do kind of exploit it that way. And New Soul 9 with a super chat says, anyone had pretzel covered in Nutella? Actually, I've never had that. I love soft pretzels or just even hard pretzels. I like Nutella. I've never actually combined the two. I don't think I may have. But that's a good combo. I feel like Nutella is good on most things. My son loves Nutella. Sometimes he'll just straight up ask me to put Nutella on a plate for him and just eat it that way, or in a bowl. We'll just eat it like that. Chocolate covered pretzels are good. God, man. Anyway, all this is to say, final topic of the day, EA is sticking to $70. This was something that I did want to make sure to talk to you guys about because it was a big question that a lot of us had. And EA's CEO, during their earnings, they just did their earnings report. They did confirm that they're sticking with the $70 price point for now. They used the word yet. They said we're not increasing it yet. So they're definitely signaling that at some point they will, which is not surprising. But I think this does mean that Battlefield 6 will be a $70 title, which is good because if they have any chance of actually competing with Call of Duty, they can't come in at $80, in my opinion. But I mean, I wonder if it's just going to be for the next fiscal year or what. Oh, God, I'm starting to get a headache now, though. All right. Sorry, I'm okay. Why is that? All right. Whatever. Shadowlink says if Mrs. MVG put Nutella in a bowl on the floor, would be A, be confused, B, grab a spoon and dig in, or C, eat out of the bowl like a cat. Shadowlink, that's a cursed question, dude. And to follow that cursed question, we have Rich Rod. Guys, Rich Rod tax is in effect. We did not hit 25 members today, by the way. We're at 11. We don't have to hit the 50. The one day I throw 50 up there, we don't hit it. But the Rich Rod tax is in full effect. We need 2 5 bombs. Rich Rod says, Colt, so sweet, he should have been the tree character's boyfriend in Concord. The tree character? What? Wait, was there a tree character in Concord? He says We need 10 memberships. I'm not even kidding. With inside/me pronouns. You make me sick, and Jez looks like a round sugar tit. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. Holy shit. Wait, is there? I don't think there's a tree character in Concord. Now I have to find out. I think he's confusing Guardians of the Galaxy. Bro's thinking of Groot. I need to know which character, Rich Rod. There is a tree character. It had unsure pronouns. Dude, there's not a tree character. I'm looking at the pictures. Oh. Are you talking about the mushroom looking dude? No way. You're talking about the mushroom looking dude, aren't you? Fuck, man. What is that character's name? I don't even know. I was going to try to bring the picture up, but it's not letting me for some reason. That is who you're talking. Oh, wow. Okay. Damn, dude. All right. I have to admit, the Concord one, throwing Concord in there is pretty funny. Rich Rod, I can feel the rage inside of you, bro. He's ready to fight. How dare you call him a tree? Get it right. God damn, bro. Well, I think that's probably it for the topic discussion, guys. I am starting to get a headache though. So, I don't know, we could do this one of two ways. I could just wrap it up here. We could do you drop memberships. I'll stay for like a little bit longer. I don't know. Tarnish says, please don't leave. I was gonna try to hit the 3-hour mark at least. I just don't know where this headache's coming from. That's the only thing that's annoying. It feels almost like an allergy type headache, like a sinus headache. It's all here in this area. What did I miss about Lost Soul aside? Nothing major. Just somebody who played it at an event saying that it felt a little like some of the animations seemed a little rough. And it's like more of a AA game and not a AAA game. Mold attacks the sinuses. Wait, why is it doing the multiple posts? Wait, Rich Rod, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I'm like drinking this coffee hoping it'll take my headache away, but I don't know. I'm starting to wonder if it's like making it worse. I hate getting headaches. I mean, nobody likes getting headaches, but they're just so damn annoying. They really are. But yeah, guys, I don't know. I think this might be a good place to wrap it up. I don't want to just, extend it for the sake of it. Do I think the Elder Scrolls 6 will actually come out? And if so, do you think it will be as good or worse than Skyrim? I mean, the only way I think the Elder Scrolls 6 could be better than Skyrim is it has to be, obviously, I think they need a completely new engine. They need a new engine, and it's got to be something that makes it look like an actual next generation proper Elder Scrolls. I think that was the thing that really killed Starfield, is it was like our first new IP in like 25 years or some crazy shit like that. And it's just in the same engine, and it looks, I just think it wasn't impressive to a lot of people. I think it was, Starfield was sold on the idea of Elder Scrolls in space. I mean, the only way you're going to sell the Elder Scrolls 6 is it's got to be truly next gen Elder Scrolls. I do think it will come out, though. I think it's obviously a game that's in development, but I think it's looking like that's probably a game that's still not coming out for another 5 to 7 years or something. Yeah. 2030 or some shit. I'll tell you what, though. It's got to hit. It's got to be big. Gaming Survivor, there's no way, bro. I mean, at this rate, I'm just going to turn into a freaking bloater. I mean, it's going to be tough for it to surpass Skyrim, truthfully. Skyrim was just so big and so successful. I mean, for a lot of people, that game is in like a category of its own. Not me personally. I never liked it, but it's going to be quite the challenge. Yeah, I don't know how I don't know if they're up to the task. Maybe they are. We'll find out. All right, guys. Yeah, I think that'll wrap it up. I appreciate that, Shadowlink. Yeah, me too. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today, though, and for hanging out with me. Got a little bit doomish in here, but I don't know. Maybe it's because the headache was coming on, and it just was putting me in a bad mood or something. I'm not sure. I'm sorry, Big Noise. Yeah, my bad, man. I guess you'll have to watch the video on demand. But yeah, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. And before I head out, I want to make sure to thank everybody for dropping any support. We did get 11 members today, so thank you for that. Anybody who dropped super chats or direct donations, even you, Rich Rod, I do appreciate the support. And, we are, oh God, Jesus, Rich. We're totally fan funded. I can only do what I do here because you guys make it possible. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, we'll see what happens tomorrow. If this headache, I don't know, sometimes I can get these headaches that turn into migraines. Hopefully that's not what this is. So there is a possibility I may have to take tomorrow off if this is turning into a migraine. Hopefully not, though. But worst case scenario, we'll be back on like Friday, I suppose. But either way, I'm gonna have to check out that Battlefield situation. All right, guys, that does it. I also want to make sure to give a shout out to Devil Shooter. He does the timestamps. He does the timestamps for the streams. He does a great job. If you guys see him in the comments, show him some love, give him some thanks. I know he appreciates it. And yeah, that's a wrap for this podcast episode. So, all right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day. And hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. If not, I'll probably see you on Friday. And that's it. All right, guys, until next time, take care.